Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Maybe who sit on the chair, maybe put small cushions under the feet, more comfortable. Otherwise, maybe your feet cold. Make it more comfortable, right? Anyway, we are very fortunate to again meet discussion for about Buddha Dharma Sangha, how we achieve to the Buddha Dharma Sangha. Actually, all over the world, many different religions. Some, people they believe God. Some people believe Buddha. Some people believe, I don't know, Dashirikyo, God, Saramare. Dashirikyo says, Konaga Manduchan Trumbaris. Mida, Sendrika, Konaga Soares.
So we all are part of one God, is that it?
Yeah, some part believe that. One God.
They emanate us, our universe, like all sentient beings that exist in our universe are emanated from one God.
Yeah. And when we die, then we all go back to that God's heart. Many different kinds. Also, then some religion believe too. We are not available to become God. Some Buddhism believe everybody will come to Buddha. No Buddha Shakyamuni. Sometimes people live together. How can we become Buddha Shakyamuni? We are not talking about we become Buddha Shakyamuni. But we become Buddha when we achieve enlightenment. The person called Buddha. Mini Buddha, right? Now only Buddha Shakyamuni.
So he's, for people who are new or visiting for the first time, Buddha Shakyamuni is the historical Buddha of our era who appeared in India some 2,500 years ago. So what he's saying is that when Buddhists say all people become Buddhas, it doesn't mean they become that historical Buddha, but that Buddhahood, being a Buddha, is something generalizable that anyone can achieve. It's like becoming president, kind of.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
But not everybody can be president. You have to be born in the United States.
It depends on president of what.
Also, we Tibetan call Pujana Gatentla Tapobes.
Yeah.
If female or man or female,
yeah.
if you're good, Then, garden tour.
Yeah, yeah.
And garden was a series, no one hold it. Can you see? Garden tour, Dapome.
Dapome. Oh,
no one hold it over.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, but I don't get the pu kina.
Oh, pu means a man.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know, this is no. Right now we are not female garden tour.
Yeah, that's right.
Usually they say, if a boy, they talk about boy, pu means boy.
Yeah, yeah. Pu kina.
Kina means if you're very good boy, good study, then no one holds you garden tour. Garden tour is, the chair.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So this is kind of like a Tibetan saying, the Ganen Tipa is the throne of Ganen, which is the central monastery of the sect which Geshe belongs to. It's the highest, that would be like becoming the Pope. So it's the highest seat that you can hold in that religious order. So the saying is, if you're born as a boy, then there's no obstacle. I think the kind of colloquialism, if we translate it, there's nothing stopping you from becoming Ganen Tipa. So, but he's saying it should also be able to be a woman too, but they have never had a female Ganen Tipa yet. I don't think there's been a female pope, although there was. Yeah, anyway, that's something else anyway.
It's also sometimes, even Tibetan tradition before, usually there are a lot of nuns, but they didn't study. They just put the nuns group. They do some, ritual thing.
Yeah.
They used most the men's study, the monks study. Then they said, if you born the boy, then no one to hold in the garden.
Yeah. So can you understand? Did everyone get that? Okay. So the reason they have this saying, if you are born as a boy, there's nothing stopping you from becoming Ganen Tipa, is because traditionally in Tibetan culture, the monks, the males, are the ones who are given the responsibility to study all of the texts and become scholars. And the nuns are generally like experts in ritual. They perform ritual. So it's because the culture, historically in their culture, things have been divided in this way between genders. It hasn't been possible for a woman to become Ganen Tipa. So, but I don't know, nowadays maybe it's changing.
I don't know the details, why the nun doesn't study, monk study. I don't know the details, but anyway. Anyway,
Those were
right now,
Lama servants. They took care of the Lama and the family.
right now in India, also there are many Tibetan nunneries. They study to Geshe degree. Then one day from the abbot, then they got the truth available. But one day Anishi became Geshe.
So he's talking about a degree called the Geshe degree, which is similar to becoming like a bishop or a cardinal, I suppose, in the Catholic Church. It's a very high level of achievement of scholarship and practice. So nowadays, some nunneries are actually offering this degree. So it has become possible, theoretically, for a nun to achieve that degree and then also become an abbot of a monastery. And then they're on the track. Like, it's possible that they could become the throne holder of Ganen.
Yeah. Also, Anyway, Buddha, we believe Buddha. What is Buddha? Meaning, Tibetan called Sangye. Tibetan name Sangye. Sang means what? Nyomobana, Shije Drava, Sama.
So there's two syllables in the Tibetan word for Buddha. The Tibetan word is slightly different than the Indian word. The Tibetan word is composed of sang and ge. Sang, I think, means purified.
Yeah.
Yeah. And ge means like opened up or expanded.
Ge means, understand all the things. All the things.
So yeah. Okay. So to translate his definition of what these two syllables mean, the first one is the nyomongdang. Sang means okay, so the first part, purified, means to purify the obstacles to knowledge and also afflictive emotions. So the first half of the Tibetan word Buddha Sang actually means to purify those things, and the second half, Ge, which means open or expand, means to expand in a...
understand all the phenomena.
So the intelligence which understands all objects of knowledge has opened or expanded.
When we are that kind of person, then we become Buddha. So, when we abandon all the delusions, then we become Sang.
Yeah, pure.
Pure. During that time, we understand all the things. What is that? Shiya is what?
Objects of knowledge.
Objects of knowledge. Yobayina Shiya Vicha.
Yobayina?
Shiya Vicha.
So if it exists, it must be an object of knowledge. This is some logical statement that he's giving.
Right. Indeed, by the Tananazo Shiya Lulu Jemdo.
So, yeah. So right now, our intelligence with regard to all objects of knowledge is not opened. It hasn't like blossomed. Ge, another word for that is ge. So it exists, or it is possible that the intelligence with regard to objects of knowledge can blossom or can open.
Then why? Give reason. Right? For example, when you're 10 years old, that time you don't have any knowledge in high school and college. You don't have any knowledge, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
10 years old, they don't have college. Right?
Yeah, most 10 years.
Yeah, most 10 years. maybe 8 years. Maybe. During that time, you don't have any idea. You don't know, high school, college knowledge is, many just jiktengi.
Yeah, jiktengi. Yeah, so there are many things in the world that exist in the world that we don't know about, right?
Yeah, during that time we don't know. Then you go to high school, you learn a lot. Then you have more knowledge to objects, right?
Yeah. So the scope of objects of knowledge that have come within the scope of your intelligence has expanded. There are still things outside of that scope, but the scope has increased.
Then you go to college, then you have more knowledge. Right?
Right.
Then we call all his daughters, professors, they will keep their name. Anyway, Marasu Shipala, Kasella Bayina, Kami Shingres. Can you teach?
Yeah.
Teach our minds, our
If you teach, okay, so if you instruct your awareness or your consciousness, if you train it, then
you can learn everything.
Right. That's very clear.
Yeah, you can learn everything. Possible, right? They shows all the
Yeah, so if your intelligence with regard to objects of knowledge expands completely, like if the scope expands to the point that it contains everything, then you've what did you say? So then you would understand everything. You would have realized everything.
Our knowledge is bigger.
So if at present we train ourselves or we study, then our knowledge increases more and more.
Knowledge all the phenomena understand one day.
Okay, so yeah, so he's repeating again. Like if you study presently, if you train yourself, your intelligence expands more and more, And it is possible that whatever objects of knowledge that there are, that exist, you can come to one day understand them, or they will be within the scope of your own intelligence. So he's making the statement again that it is possible to know everything. Right now we don't know that.
We think we know a lot of things, but we don't know anything. Even adults, we say you don't know, then people just laugh. I know that. But we don't know many things. Usually we know, basic things, how you grow up, how you take care by yourself, but we don't know many things. Therefore, on the other hand, now we say abandon all the traditions. How possible? Abandon.
Yeah.
How possible? We need to reason that. Why? We need to reason why we abandon all. It's possible abandon all the.
So this is so he just gave us like kind of a logical explanation of why it's possible to open or expand your awareness to contain everything, all objects of knowledge. Now he wants to give the logical explanation of why it's possible to also purify or abandon all delusions and obscurations to objects of knowledge.
We need to. Usually, Buddha said,
So Buddha says the mind and the afflictions of mind are not one entity. They're actually separate things. So this is what Buddha said, and now we have to consider what the meaning of it is. We have to think about it.
Now we check. For example, we say maybe attachment. Attachment in our mind is available to surface or not?
Is it possible that we can separate attachment from our mind?
Right now we have a very strong attachment that everybody has. I know this sound. Therefore, now what can show to prove that we can suffer to attachment and our mind? What proof? We need to what proof?
Yeah. What kind of proof? What kind of proof can be shown?
You have to say.
Yeah, proof.
Maybe I said wrong.
What kind of proof? Not proof.
What's the proof?
Proof.
Proof, right? If attachment is same as, attachment is same as our mind, then always the same level. We don't need to change. But this, for example, you buy today new car, maybe BMW, or Mercedes. Mercedes, right? First today you go to buy your very strong attachment. Even you don't want to step inside your shoes. You put something under the
Carpet, yeah.
carpet, some plastic or some newspaper, then you drop there. You don't want any box that the put on the glass, right? Everybody, very strong attachment. Right? For example, I have one. First I got computer. Come here. Geshe Ngawang one very small computer. It's also very expensive, maybe $1,000 something. That time, very strong attachment. I keep always. One day I come, you push it and stick the finger there. The very big, what's that?
Fingerprint.
Fingerprint. I try. This is how I come to the thing. I told him. Then he said, no problem, I'm going to buy,
Yeah.
Then he went to buy something. We were killing. Anyway, I have very strong attachment that time. I always clean, very nice. Yeah, right now you check my computer, you can put your name just put that. This is same. I think you guys also same. Same when you buy something, first you have very strong attachment. Then maybe 1 week, maybe 2 weeks, maybe 3 months, 1 month. Less attachment, less attachment. One day you don't want it. Right? They shows when you don't want these things, then before they are very strong, big attachment, the attachment is gone, suffer to your mind. They shows, it is proof to our mind it's possible to suffer.
So this is the proof that it's possible to separate attachment and the mind from the mind. This is a general example, a very rough example.
If you go to detail, they're not detailed. But this is very rough form. Everybody has explained. Everybody has what's explained.
Everyone has experience of this type of thing.
Right? Okay. Maybe I can give you some other example. I'm not explaining that. Maybe you guys have explained. Yeah, we forget. It's okay. Anyway, everybody has to explain, right? They shows your mind is not same with attachment. Same is angry, same is Trado. Jealousy.
Oh, jealousy.
I need to learn a little bit about that.
Yeah.
He's very.
I need to learn comfort.
He's the Central Tibetan dialect. He's very soft, very nice. I'd say comfort dialect that doesn't say words correctly, then he doesn't understand. Anyway, we have too many. We have to think, not just say, oh, Buddha said that. You're right. It's just a little bit investigation. It's true or not. We study, investigation, then you understand that. Then you are very stable. Otherwise, sometimes here one person says very nice talk. They use 100%. Then go that. They say very different. Oh, maybe that. This is different. Also,
yeah. So the Abhisamaya Alamkara, this is from the text, the Abhisamaya Alamkara. Kali, Yeah.
They're two different.
Okay.
Tupo and
Wongpo Topo and Wongpo Numbo. Okay.
What's a sharp?
Yeah, these are in the Abhisamaya Alamkara, which is a classic Buddhist text from India. It says that there are two classes of students. There are the one student of incredibly sharp faculties who catches everything right away from the beginning, and then another one who has low faculties, kind of dull faculties. So it takes them quite a while to kind of catch on. Chala.
Who's better?
Oh, so which one is better?
He said
so the sharp faculty one is better?
He said, why? Because he first studied to our Alokara.
Well, Abhisamaya
Alokara. First he studied, he checked. If we study this text, is meaning or not, is true or not, first we check.
I see. So the saying is between these two types of student that are listed, which one is better? And the saying goes of course the one of sharp faculty is better. And the reason for that is because while they study, when they first encounter something in the text, particularly the Abhisamaya Alamkara, which is a very complicated text, they actually analyze, as soon as they read it, whether it's correct or not correct, or what the meaning of it might be. They kind of probe with their own mind into the thing that they're reading as they read it.
other one doesn't check, just go to straight. Right?
Right.
Then also, kanchi sanji song yore, sanji song also kelengi yore, sanji song also kelengi yore. You are believe?
Yeah.
You trust part. Yeah. A little bit in this case.
Yeah. So this is the difference between we all have some faith or some trust in the teachings of Buddha, but there's a difference between trusting in the teaching of Buddha and then developing like the capacity to analytically like engage the content of it, to see what it means for us or to see if it's correct or incorrect.
What did the thought Kazan Nandula? That theory, that deposit. Deposit no more is driver Dunga. Driver Dunga Jirata deposit.
Okay, so today we are talking about sin. So what is sin? Sin has its root in affliction and its result is suffering. This, whatever has the result of suffering, whatever action results in suffering, we call that sin. Yeah, so anger is the cause of suffering. For example, we say that.
Right? When we anger, we are not unhappy. The unhappy is result angry, for their country. Now we talk about the Pasha was.
So now we're talking about the confession of sin.
Right. Confession. What's that confession?
Confession. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think this is beginning page 184 of the blue book.
저도 가상 학교에서 샤바와 다 가상하고 대파라 몽고에 와서 대파 샤타 몽고에 있어.
Yeah, so there are many confessions of sin, many different ways of confessing sin.
세단 대파라 집에 가는 맛도 봐라. 집에 가는 맛도 봐라. 라지 가는 맛도 봐서.
집에?
집만 있어요. Monks cannot do alcohol. This is Java, that's Java.
I see.
Then everybody don't kill. This is the Rajin thing.
I see. So there are different types of sin or transgression. One is transgression by some vow or some discipline that a person is holding, and another is a natural transgression. So the examples he gave were, for monks, for example, they take a vow not to take intoxicants, so if they drink alcohol, they've broken the vow. So the sin that they've committed is a sin against a vow or a rule that they're following. Versus, Buddha said, don't kill. This is for everyone, and the reason is because naturally killing is wrong. So that there doesn't need to be a rule established to make killing something that's actually wrong and produces suffering for yourself in the future.
다 들리다 당나서 뒷발라 당나서 지금 소다르기 다 좀더 잡아야 말 가서 소다르기 동반 근데 동반 예받아 쇼가이나 만 되도록 그냥 말했어. 고선 샤살아야 잡아먹고 인양돼서라 샤살아.
So for example, violations of the pratimoksha, the vows which monks take, those can't be purified simply by reciting some mantra or whatever, or those can't be confessed simply by reciting some mantra or doing some private ritual. Those actually have to be confessed in congress with other monks. You have to get together with a group of other monks in order to confess violations of your monastic vows. So the way of confessing is actually different. There are many different ways of confessing besides, just doing rituals, private rituals.
Okay, 되지. 다음으로 상처점이 또 많아요. 그래서 너도 상처점을 또 받으려 이거 쇼마다. 안에 산제도 상처다. 남아게 계시니 되게 꿈들라. 등소사를 내봐서 등소사네요.
Okay, so for example, another example is the bodhisattva vows. So you may have taken the bodhisattva vows, and then if you commit some violation of the bodhisattva vows, since you take those vows before the Buddhas and bodhisattvas and gurus, usually, this is visualization, right? Like usually when you take the vow, yeah. So then when you confess those, you also have to confess before the Buddhas, bodhisattvas, and gurus. And this, I believe, is like done in a visualization or a ritual practice.
근데 나도 또 가도 무엇이 왔어요.
Not? Yeah, so tantric vows.
tantric vows 다 그러다 나면도 중골.
Yeah, the
중골을 봐주니.
okay.
아니 visualization이 다 맞아버렸어.
So the tantric vows also, for example, he's giving the Kala Chakra. So if you have some vows from the Kala Chakra or whatever, you have to confess breaking the vow before Kala Chakra. So you would visualize Kala Chakra there and do the confession to Kala Chakra.
그냥 남소자가 다 난조받은 지시가 난조래가 되고 난조받은 난조마다 지시 난조.
Yeah. So for yogis and yoginis, they would do the
we do that. Usually we do but yogi initiation and yamataka initiation. Doing that and they purify the negative karma for marking.
Okay.
니바조도 티카타 니바조 바다고 그랬어.
간제치기래.
We do yogi initiation.
Yeah.
No, people just do group.
So the initiation itself is also a purification?
Yeah.
Okay.
No. Not teacher can do for us. We do.
Yeah, you do yourself.
Oh yeah, okay. Doing that, we purify the negative karma for market.
Okay.
restaurant.
So he's saying also during when you receive an initiation, his example here is for Vajra Yogini. When you receive the initiation, you also do purification in order to receive the initiation, I think as part of the ritual. And that ritual is also a purification of infractions of the tantric vow.
And it's when you perform a self-initiation?
The Dagju, right?
Yeah,
Dagju. So during self-initiation, I don't know, maybe I'm not initiated in Vajra Yogini, so I don't know.
Well, any day you've done retreat on that you do self-initiation.
All the anyway, there are many different kinds. But right now we talk about, yesterday, 2 weeks before we said, there are a lot of negativities. Now I'm here, we say, now what do we do? You guys have there read?
I don't know.
I'm here, I'm taught here, we finish it up.
Page 185 in the blue book. You may be wondering if that's the case, what can be done.
Okay.
If you're very angry, you say,
185. Okay, so at the bottom of 185, right? If that's the case, what can be done?
Okay, that's good. Okay, right? If you got it, now before we talk about a lot of negatives, do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, then what do we do now? Then we did it done. Then, okay?
Okay, so this is, I will just read what he just read. You may be then wondering, if that's the case, what can be done?
Yeah.
It is not helpful merely to stay frightened by this. You must, by doing hundreds of thousands of prostrations, recitations of the 100-syllable mantra, and so on, expiate and purify all the sins you have committed since the beginning of samsara.
Okay? Then
unless you receive the signs that these sins have been purified, you must do these practices until your death. These signs were mentioned in the Dharani of Chunda, and you should refer to the grade stages of the path and so on. So, okay. So if you practice the Dharma and slowly the mind becomes more peaceful and more happy, this is a sign of some purification, right?
개와 가서 채워나 쌤 칼에 칼 그러면 딱 누가 다 오면 그래.
So if you practice and study and the mind becomes like, more and more troubled as time goes on, this is a sign that the sin hasn't been purified.
I think we are not purified. What is it? When you morning get up, you can do activity all the day. Before you go bed, you can think about, what I did today. How I do good things, how I do bad things. If you do good things, you enjoy dedication. If you do bad things, not much things, then you can purify. Purify that. Before you go back, you do what's that?
Yeah, the 100 syllable mantra.
Yeah, then Dongsha.
The confession of downfalls.
Together, then you can purify.
Yeah. So does everyone understand this? He's saying like one practice that you could take up is, in the morning you wake up and you go throughout your day doing whatever you're doing. At night, before you go to bed, you take some time to reflect back on what you did throughout the day, and you see which things you did which are good, and which things you did which are bad. The things that you did which are good, you dedicate the merit from those. You rejoice in having done something good and dedicate the merit. And the things you did which are bad, you need to purify. So you can recite the 100 syllable mantra or the confession of downfalls, which I think is in the back of this book, one of the appendixes in the back of this book, etc., to purify the negativities of that day. Shoge Nyeba?
If you do morning,
yeah.
Purify evening.
I see.
You purify in the morning.
So the faults of the morning should be purified in the evening. The faults of the evening should be purified in the morning. Like this is an aphorism, a Tibetan aphorism. So like in the morning you can think, what did I do last night, and purify that. And in the evening you can think, what did I do this morning, and purify that.
Then don't live the night.
Yeah.
You said that?
Yeah, so don't leave it overnight.
Don't sap. Don't sap. Usually we sap that. Then Yamla Mambo Mevan, Kade can the rich in the degrees. Mambo Mekade, this much practice, not it. Not necessary need. Mambo Meva in there. Nepal shot them Yamashan degrees.
Nyamba?
Shapa.
Shop confession, right?
Confession.
Yeah. So he's saying like it's not necessary to do like so many practices, like a book this fat full of things that you have to recite. It's not really necessary. The main thing is to confess the faults or mistakes, the downfalls that you've had throughout the day. That's the main thing. So if you have done some mistake during the day, some faulty thing, confession alone is very powerful. Okay, hang on. Yeah, so I'll just read here. He's been covering this anyway in his comments. So you should perform the Vajrasattva meditation and recite his 100-syllable mantra 21 times before you go to bed at night. You should also strenuously perform full prostrations while reciting the Confession of Transgression Sutra. In the evening, confess the vows you broke during the day. In the morning, confess the vows you broke last night. Don't leave a broken vow untended for a whole day. Even if you do not do many other practices, working hard at this one will be more than enough. Yeah. So what he just read, I'm sorry, I didn't read this translation directly before he just was saying it. So then he just read this line: your sins are the source of all suffering in this and future lives. And if you can expiate them, you will rid yourself of suffering and develop realization and insights. So if you have sins, then you also have namto. You have like kind of this afflicted conceptuality. It's one of the main problems that you're trying to overcome in Buddhism by doing like vipassana meditation or things like that. So if you have sin, automatically this comes, like kind of this churned up mind that's continually elaborating conceptually everything you experience.
So lojo chena ngan kile shiriti non yodo was. When you study, you have to knowledge just come all over that.
Right.
The same there. Then that sent nasa something nasa shomaso. That duma mago yawate karchirina kiwa nama te jogati myaga lesa samares in jogres.
Okay, so let's see. I think he's reading the next line. For example, when you are sick in this rebirth, the thing causing you to undergo illness is some non-virtue you have already accumulated. So getting rituals and so on to perform on your behalf may not help, because the result of rituals will ripen independently of all illness. Anyway, but what he gave comment on this, which he said, the sickness that you experience in this life is the same as a seed, which was planted at some other time, which you didn't see or had nothing to do with, but then produces the flowers that are growing in the yard, or the plant that you see today. So it's like that.
Sometimes we do some, when we sick, we do some pujas, and the puja doesn't work. We have some guy here, some guy here, long time, now he's not here. That something he asked, something done. Then we do some pujas, then he come back again. Puja doesn't work. We have always something after we do some pujas, but it doesn't change much. But it change much. But we have this difficult situation going on. But it is we really did clear the karma to pass that.
Yeah. So the example he's giving is like there was a student here previously some years before who had some very difficult experience and then requested lots of pujas to be done on his behalf to kind of get rid of these bad experiences he's having. But he came back and complained like these pujas aren't working. So he's still having the experience. And Geshe is saying that's because the karma which he's experiencing now was actually done in another lifetime, not in this one. So it's not that easy to just get rid of it. Okay. Yeah, I read that already.
Oh, you read it?
Yeah, so he's rereading the part, like sometimes the puja rituals performed on your behalf may not help because the result of the rituals will ripen independently of the illness. Yeah, so then because of things like this, don't fall into having wrong views about it, like this, there's no benefit at all for doing like these pujas or whatever. So it says in the book, but do not have the wrong view that such rituals are of no benefit. Yeah, so he's saying like even if you do the ritual, the puja in this lifetime, and it doesn't produce any result immediately like that you experience now, doesn't mean that there is no result. That result will certainly arise even if it's in a future lifetime. Right, so he's talking the next line. Suppose some peas are already growing in a field and you sow barley there to stop the peas from growing any further. This would have about the same effect as the ritual. So he also made the comment, it doesn't mean like having put the seed in the ground doesn't mean that it's not going to grow. It will grow. It's just that it's not going to be able to, counteract the thing that's already grown, that's already there, present. So. Yeah, first.
not very rapid.
I see.
Before the rapid,
Min.
before rapid, we can say.
Yeah. So as long as some seed that has been sown hasn't come to fruition, hasn't ripened, it's possible that it can be abandoned. We can get rid of it. We can take it out before it comes to fruition. Okay, so if a sin has already borne fruit, you can do nothing about it. You should therefore confess your sins before you experience their results. This is like destroying the seeds. So this is what he was saying. If the result hasn't already come up, it's possible to purify those negativities. But if the result is already there, there's not much you can do. Okay. So if you expiate small sins, they will be totally purified. Greater sins will be weakened. If you confess your great sins and sins whose results you were otherwise certain to experience in the lower realms, the outcome will be the ripening in this life as serious illness and so on. So those sins generally have no good qualities at all. They do have the property that they can be purified. So in fact, there is no sin that cannot be purified through confession. So there is no confession of some certain types of sin?
Yeah, we talk about that. Yeah,
so if it's a sin, it definitely, or it follows that there exists some type of confession of it. So he's saying, like, if it's a sin of small power, of a weak sin, then if you confess it, it's shana. Then it did top chunjing shana. Shatan.
How you purify? It is not. It is pure or not. It depends how you.
Right. So he's talking about the sins of different, like, strengths. So you have like sins that are weak, and then you have sins that are, middling ones, and then sins that are very heavy, strong, like the way that you did it, the type of activity that you did, who you did it to, etc., etc. So if you purify well, if you're able to purify really well, you can, or you're able to confess really well, you can purify those sins completely. Like, you can weaken the strong ones all the way down to they're almost nothing, and the weaker ones you can completely purify. On the other hand, if you don't purify well, then it doesn't really make a difference, So it really depends on how you purify, or how you confess, right?
Now,
yeah. Right. So let's go down. So in fact, there is no sin that cannot be purified through confession. The extent to which a sin will be purified is determined by the power of your intention and actions to expiate it. So you must have strong regret, exercising restraint, and so on. Some Dharma practitioner in this life suffer from many undesirable things, but this is best because it means that evil karma, whose results these practitioners would otherwise have experienced in future rebirths, has ripened on them in this life.
Okay, this is a private. Some people do always meditation. All the good things are there, always bad things happen. Not successful.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
대용한테 가르나 지와 신발을 누구에게 내먹고 누만 싸서 말했어. 되게 내다 단단 문제예요.
So when you see this type of thing, like he said, a very good practitioner who practices very earnestly and devoutly and doing lots of very intensive practice, but never meeting with success and having a lot of difficulties come up, this is the ripening of karma which was sown in previous lifetimes, like ripening on that person now. So he's saying like even a great sin, if you manage to confess it really well, it will not ripen in a future lifetime, but will ripen now as something much smaller, in a much weaker form. Okay, so this is again reading from the text. These practitioners may suffer a drop in their living standards, for example, but this means some karma that would have resulted in their taking rebirth as hungry ghosts has ripened on them in this life. So this is like the same thing that he said, but given as a specific example.
Very success.
Very
success.
So he's giving again the opposite example of a person who's like, kind of detestable, having incredible success all the time. So we might see people like that too. So he's saying, why is it that we can see that? He said, this is also because in previous lifetimes, this person had done good things, and now we're seeing the results of those ripening here. Yeah, so we often see this, right? Yeah, right. So he's saying we often see like people who are bad, a person who's kind of detestable, but having lots and lots of success and everything goes their way in this life. Yeah, so he's saying like although the person is having now the ripening of karmas that they've sown in previous lifetimes and having those successes at the moment, but when they die, probably they will go to Yama, which is down, bad place, hell.
We can go to someone to ask Yama, don't do that. Everybody want to go up. And that the whole do us. And that said that me abu, chimi chuba yabu, chimi nemlemba yabu, chimi the Katina Nada no problem.
Yeah, so we have there are a lot of people who are really good practitioners who do a lot of practice and practice really well, but they get sick and they never meet with success in their goals. We see this a lot. So he's talking about the example here. Let me just read to catch up.
Yeah.
So these practitioners may... we passed that. So some sinners seem to have all the luck, have long lives, and so on. This is the result of some remnant of virtuous acts in their past lives that happen to ripen on them during this life. Later they will descend to states where they will be tormented and have only suffering. An example of a practitioner's suffering is Dromtonpa, a true being of Dharma who appeared to have contracted leprosy late in life. So he's talking about now the Dromtonpa, who is the disciple of Atisha, a very famous Indian Lama or Indian guru who came to Tibet and taught Buddhism to Tibetans. Dromtonpa, toward the end of his life, contracted leprosy. So this is an example of someone who was like a lifelong, selfless, devoted, religious person having some very bad results. Leprosy?
Leprosy is a bad disease, right?
Yeah.
I heard, I don't know, long-term Tibetan who have this disease, they put some very far away, small house,
Yeah.
lock there. Look, it's true or not?
No, it's probably true.
True?
Yeah. It's common. I mean, even we know in Western history too, like when people get leprosy, they are usually kept separately from everyone else.
Yeah, they say if that the disease maybe was a spirit
By touching, yeah.
touching. Yeah. Very, very unusual, very bad disease. Who believe in Tomba is yes,
Yeah.
Atisha student.
Mm.
He got a very bad disease there. We say maybe no legendary, no karma effect.
Yeah, cause and effect.
But not really, maybe we think maybe not cause and effect.
People think so?
Yeah.
You think so? I don't think so.
Maybe I think a bit. He did, he's very good student from Tempa, was Atisha, very practitioner. But before he passed away, he got very bad disease. But he explained this is why he get this about. He created a karma previous many lives. Maybe born to hell, maybe some bad things, maybe angry go. This result become this life, too sick, die.
So could everyone understand that?
Because
So he's saying like there's some speculation, I guess, by people when Dromtonpa contracted leprosy, whether or not this is actually karma. People couldn't believe it because he's such a virtuous and pure person and had lived his entire life through doing this very virtuous practice. But he's saying the reason why he had this disease is because of karma, because of cause and effect. Perhaps in a previous lifetime he had created a karma which would have caused him to be reborn in a hell, for example. But now it's ripening in this life due to his virtuous practice as just a disease. So it's this type of effect that confession or purifying practices have on karma.
right? Therefore, now we can see, this is a true long story that now we see very good Geshes, lamas, before they die, no cancer,
Right.
disease.
Yeah.
How can come? People say, they meditation all the life, how can come there? People ask me. This is, they know, the lama took center, could give all to my members. Not to get that.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Therefore, also they before that not they did very bad things, maybe karma to I don't know. These can't resource.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's saying like even really great practitioners, high lamas, very virtuous people, they also have beginningless lifetimes before that they've been through. Everyone has that. Even the most virtuous person that you see has those lifetimes behind them where they've sown the seeds of all types of actions that they've done. And what we see as cancer ripening in a great lama in this lifetime is the fruition of something which was sown in one of those previous lifetimes. So it doesn't mean that just because you've done virtuous practice in this lifetime, all of the karma of all the previous lifetimes you had is gone. It's not the case.
Okay? यहाँ दिल्ली यहाँ शोची ने समझे ये कैसे तो लामा के विषय तो चिक ना भाई ना मी मोमो ना वा कुछ रहा
हाँ मी
तोने
हाँ
तोने
yeah.
चिक चिक ना तोने के लिए मैं चिक रहा तो मी शिबे काम के तो ऐसा मोमो चुप चुप लेंगे
There's also the case of practitioners of Tonglen, the giving and taking practice, which at the highest level has some very high capacity for one person to actually take on the sickness or suffering of whole groups of other people on themselves. So it's also possible to see a great practitioner developing a disease as a part of a practice of Tonglen. Right?
Yeah. I have one story. My teacher, I took Geshe for him. He's also Geshe teacher. When he passed away when he was 93 years old, before he passed away, his own, then some people were very sick, then they go to see him. The next day, the teacher himself sick. Then they, people say, oh, no, teacher checking that the other people sorting from him. And after the attendance doesn't like to meet people sick, they cannot go to see him. They say, no, Rinpoche is maybe busy or doing something. Try to push me. This kind, if real practitioner, they can check easily to others suffering. Today, Baja, Tangazo Nasata, coming to Kala Sato Children. Nasata, Nasara, Kani Shumakama Sato Children. We are careful when we have difficult situation.
Yeah, subject. Subsub. Yeah.
It doesn't work. Puja doesn't work. But this time, difficult situation is when we already done previous a lot of things. Now we do good things, then the ripen bad karmas. True born will be heard of. Then will be a difficult situation this life. Then the karma gone.
So anyway, just sorry to repeat the Tibetan that he said was when you yourself or someone who you look up to, kind of venerating, has an illness or sickness or some terrible thing befalls them, you have to be extremely careful about how you attribute the cause of that, the reason of that. So you shouldn't lose your faith in the Dharma because of seeing like a great practitioner become ill or something.
Here they say, therefore you are not
Yeah, so do not hold wrong views. Meditate on joy even when you get sick and so forth. You suffer an enormous loss if you destroy some of your virtue by anger. You also profit greatly from any sins you expiate. Sorry.
Okay? It is very important, when we are all practitioners. You guys are all practitioners. And some people may be unpractitioners. People ask, you Buddhism say you do good things, you have good results, but you always do go to temple, meditation, but you're not very successful. How can it come? We have to give the answer, right?
Yeah. It's clear, right? You guys understand. So if somebody asks you, some outsider asks you, you guys always say like, what goes around comes around and all of these types of things. So, and I see you're always doing good stuff, but you're miserable. Right? So, what's the deal? You have to be able to give a reply.
Yeah. Then we say, oh yeah, it's true. Now we did no beginningless my life.
Yeah.
And I did something, I good something bad, I did many bad things. Then I do good things in this life, then the bad result. That's wrapping now. We believe this. Right?
Yeah. So that was clear, right? Everyone could understand.
Okay. That then was Kuntu Gewa Kuntu Chomba dance. The past shop in Tapani, Chomondang, Kishan the Chevayins. Can you read?
Yeah, this is, I read already, but I'll read.
Oh, you read again?
You suffer an enormous loss if you destroy some of your virtue by anger. You also profit greatly from any sins you expiate.
그래서 다 개와 공주 쫓는 것도 종으로 와서 그래 종.
Yeah.
아니 대파 전에 다 와야 되는 거 계산하고 대파 전에 다 계산하고. We really did many bad things.
Yeah.
If it is possible, purify. It is 계산 거.
계산.
How can say?
Benefit.
A benefit. Yeah, benefit.
Profit.
Profit.
Yeah.
Profit. 그다 때문에 다티 올마는 산이다. 대파 시작한 것은 또 시작한 거는 샤워 그래서 어떤 말로 있어. 없이.
The next one. Yeah. In order to expiate your sin, you must have a full set of the 4 opponent powers. Yeah, Topshi.
아니 빠지면도 다 대리 나가요. 대샤이즈. Yeah, I think we stop today here. The next time we go to 4.
The 4 opponent powers.
This is how you purify negatives. This is very important. Do you have questions?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Oh, it's a homework question? We have homework questions, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, last week we didn't.
Yeah, I sent someone.
Oh, okay.
2 weeks ago, we did
Yeah.
the class on Sunday.
But first, yeah, you can do, yeah, give me this paper.
But there
And
were-
also your question, give me question. Give other questions.
So could a Buddha manifest sickness? I'm thinking about what you said about lamas who can manifest sickness, and so I think some of them are Buddhas. So I'm wondering if a Buddha manifests sickness, would it be because it's a teaching for us, or because of past lives? Because inevitably a Buddha had past lives and some negative karma. Does that make sense to you, Andy?
Yeah, I mean, I understand your question.
Okay.
The sangye natsa yena, the jinde rebe, yene tuba draw, yuma.
You do two
Yeah, so he's saying like that's completely for a Buddha, specifically for a Buddha. That's like an illusion. That's like an illusory emanation. That's not actually. I think Buddhas in general, like the definition of a Buddha is they are beyond cause and effect. They don't have karma at all.
근데 다 간지마치 간단 말한수 소소 개개의 사지세요 was. You believe our teacher Buddha, right?
Yeah, right.
But our Buddhas, our teachers, they are very bad disease, right? Everybody understand?
Yeah. So he's saying like, although some people, we have a practice of faith in our teachers as being Buddhas, but then we see our own teachers dying from some terrible illness or something like that.
이제 이바에서 이까라 가르쳐서 다 말라. 다 그런 teaching. 또 싫어야 레스. 이제 나는 좀 싫어 다서 막 땡겨 버렸어. 삼삼 맞잖아. 이렇게 나야 그랬다. 이마 싫어 그랬다. 그 meditation that implement. 또 대대 미쳐졌어.
So he's saying like in the case of like seeing your own, in the case of your own teacher who you see as a Buddha, when they manifest these sicknesses or whatever and pass away, one possible way is to look at that as a teaching that they are giving you, that you need to think about these things, impermanence and death. You have to meditate on those. So sometimes without a real example, it's easy to just have an abstraction in your mind.
근데 마산난 건 진짜. 진짜 못하지 그랬어.
Dindim
주더라고. 다.
masamna di kari.
진짜 주로. 죽상 그랬어. 못하지. 제가 못하지.
Yeah. So if you think about it, you have to be careful and you have to think about these things, because otherwise you can make a mistake and maybe have a wrong view or something like that, such as like, you know, his virtue or whatever didn't work or something like that.
부자라도 work.
Yeah.
Therefore, he said, okay, my teacher is Buddha, but he has suffered. Contrary, right? Buddha does have suffered. Buddha's song is
Yeah. Buddha is pure.
right.
His sang ye. So sang means like there is no affliction in a Buddha.
Now second, what? He shows us teaching to. How come? Things. Right?
Yeah. So are you saying like why he shows us? How he shows us?
He shows us. Right?
Yeah.
He shows us how become dead impermanent. If
Right.
you doesn't matter whatever you do.
Mm.
One day you die.
All right. So could you understand that? He's saying
Who shows us that?
the teacher.
Teacher.
The teacher. Yeah. So it's a teaching by like example. Like this death and impermanence comes to everybody. It doesn't matter. So if you are compounded, you know, born at some point, of course you will die. So
Usually also Buddha shows to pass away.
yeah. So Buddha also chose, you know, to pass away in this world.
Buddha, yeah, that can't. You got it, my answer?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Okay, now you did the homework.
All right. So homework.
I don't know what homework I forget.
Oh, but it's in the hurricane homework.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So this is about the kingo. Kurukulla
Oh,
mandala,
oh yeah.
offering mandala.
Yeah, okay.
So first question is, why is it necessary to offer a mandala?
Okay, who has answered? No one has answered? You can say, she doesn't have it.
Anybody?
You heard? Why we need to offer mandala? That's right.
Yeah.
Why we need to offer mandala?
If you don't give,
They're not exhausted to, what's that? Big mountain, what we say?
Huh?
Big mountain.
Yeah, big mountain.
Meru.
Or a Meru.
They're not exhausted to Meru mountain. Meru mountain, what we say?
Rijapurira.
Rijapurira.
Yeah, Mount Meru.
Yeah, mud Meru. But why we need to offer mandala?
I think you were saying?
it's okay.
Yeah,
Oh, you
who has,
asking it
go
up?
ahead.
I was just going to say to purify negativities and create merit.
Yourself?
No, it's different for me.
Okay, go ahead.
I believe that if you don't give, you don't get. So you gotta give something to get something. So when you start your pujas, right, you gotta give as much as you can. Then you may possibly.
Second.
근데 그래 찰라 차세 마타나 근데 그래 대부 라마사. He said, if you don't give, you can't get.
Yeah, this is also short answer. I think good answers are. This answer is good, you know.
Yeah, so his own answer is to amass the accumulations and to purify negativities. So it's like the same as your answer.
And also, the answer also makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
You don't do good things, you don't get good result. You do bad things, you get bad results.
Well, the result you're looking for is purifying your negativities, right? So, if you don't give, you won't purify it.
I don't think sorry, I'm
No,
adding my own thing, but I think also giving isn't the only way to purify negativity. So maybe the answer is less.
It's more like mental giving, isn't it?
Yeah, but
It's
I
not
mean,
physical.
it doesn't even have to be giving. I mean, according to this, if you just have regret, that's also purifying negativities.
So then what's the word offering? You're offering a mandala. You're offering.
I know, that's the question that we're asking you. So.
You offer.
Yeah.
okay, anyway, that good answers are
Sure.
twice answer. Okay, now second.
Okay, second question. How many distinct divisions of the mandala are there?
How many difference?
Divisions,
Oh yeah, okay. Okay, who's? I teach this very detailed, I think. Couple
There's good answers here. Do you want your answers back? I haven't had the answer.
I wasn't sure, either 7
Yeah,
or 37.
Yeah.
37.
7,
So
something, and 25 or 23. Right? I teach last when? Couple weeks ago, I detail one by one. When you just 37, we count this one. When we 25, we check all these things. When we 7, we check this one. Now I also forget it now. Anyway.
So 7, 25, or 37?
23.
23? 23 or 25?
Yeah, we can do something 25, 23,
So there are a lot of divisions. 7 or from 7 up to as many as 37, right?
Once you say 40당, 시절이 지워있는 주잖아.
Okay. So if you do the ground of powerful gold and then the iron mountains, you can divide into 25. Right?
If you don't count, there's 20, 23.
If you don't count the ground of powerful gold and the ring of mountains, then you only have 23. But if you count those two, then it equals 25.
간지마지 메라세도 당도 쉬우시 싸니 단 엄블리에서 all the phenomena we put in the model and we offer them, we get a lot of merit. And we don't lose anything.
Yeah.
Kale maybe kesachi.
Kale maybe?
Yeah. Kale tam losum maybe kesachi. Kali,
Kali.
Not difficult.
It's not difficult and
and not also. It's not
yeah,
cost.
don't cost anything.
We get a lot of it.
Great profit, yeah, great benefit. So,
Okay? Okay, that's all.
okay, the next one is, what is the meaning of the phrase, just as an elephant calf craves a few mouthfuls of grass? It's dot, dot, dot.
Who is it?
The phrase, just as an elephant calf craves a few mouthfuls of grass. The Langboche?
Yeah.
Langboche is Sadu.
Oh, it will know that. Right?
그게 있나? 이거 혹시 다
Everyone remember the metaphor?
Yeah, it was in the book. I found it.
It's the start of the
Nope.
chapter, day 1, day 6. Day 5.
What is it? I don't know.
Do you know which page it's
How
on?
there's some sweet grass at the edge of a cliff,
It's
and so
the,
the young elephant goes
Oh, yeah.
after that sweet grass, even though it's in a dangerous location. So what's that metaphor for in our minds?
Yeah, this is an example. How we put our practice.
So even if it's like we're attached to like a small thing, but then if we reach for that small thing, then it can lead us to follow like the cliff into stronger and stronger attachments. Is that what it is?
That is God, he said. Jitenge dewa chujula chani. And it done. This one.
Yeah. So if you have even the attachment to the very small things in the world, like small worldly things, then it can lead to great suffering, like easily. So,
Okay, then.
so why is it necessary to confess sins? Kare dikbala shapa, kare goba kare.
Or the Pasabu go back. Yeah, everybody know that, right? Why? Because if not, yeah.
It's the first step in purification. To confess sins is the first step of going towards purification.
So purification the 장비 kare rimba tambo.
The Pasabu yeah, it's correct. Kaje, Dipa Machana, Dipin Dragamato, Duanagarwa.
Yeah, so if you don't purify the sin, then you'll have the results of suffering. Like it's going to come up.
Okay, this is what she said. It's correct. Anyway, Kaje Gupa, Dipa Sa Machana, Tinjavate Tedi Nimachi, General members. Dipa Sa,
Yeah,
Mashavayana, the dead is. They live there.
yeah.
One day condition happen, then results.
So if you don't purify the sin, if you commit some sin, you accumulate it, and you just leave it there, for sure the result will come up one day, and the result is always suffering. So
Okay? Yeah, also bigger. This is a big question. Why?
if you don't purify sin, why is it that it gets bigger and bigger?
But when we do a little bit negative, they become bigger and bigger. One.
So he's saying like when you do some virtuous thing, you sow the seed for that virtue, and it grows into some result. Did give something? Did you Okay, so the bodhicitta and and compassion, those two become greater and greater, right?
Together.
Yeah, if together.
So we didn't dedicate this merit to without.
Yeah.
Then there's a swim is what? Flesh is swim. Sumba. Sashi swim.
Yeah, like hold.
Yeah, hold. Compassion and bodhicitta hold this merit. Then this merit become bigger and bigger. But actually, just video one time, nothing feeling. We do a lot of merit, but this kind of merit doesn't go up. Even we choose some bad words, they say, oh, if you live a little bit, they get bigger, the bigger. You guys understand?
So this is curious. He's saying like unless you really have like bodhicitta and compassion, like the action that you've done is completely kind of within that motivation. If you do it that way, then of course like the fruit will become greater and greater, like reaching toward Buddhahood. But otherwise, like normal virtues that people do just on money payment, kind of absent-mindedly, or like little things that you may do in your life which don't have such great motivations, they don't actually become all that great. On the other hand, even a little tiny like negative thing that you do can just like balloon massively into some huge result that's like a lifetime of misery or something.
Yeah,
so why is that?
If you kill the small chick, slip, lice, 15 days, same as you kill human beings.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
How? Everybody think this, okay?
So there's the saying in the book. I think we haven't reached the page yet, but the negative karma from killing a lice is not so bad. But if you leave it for 16 days, because of the property of expansion of negative karma, after 16 days it equals the same karma as killing a human being. So he's saying you guys gotta think about why that happens.
Go to research, okay? I'm also not read as Buddha said, teaching said that always, that there need to some reason. And everybody to maybe search Google. Right? This is usually we don't think, maybe it doesn't purify then. They're going to come up bigger and bigger. You always, this or that. Just be thinking, what? Same, you need to virtues, they said. If you need to go, motivation, you need to compassion, then if you sleep, then motivation is bigger and bigger. Vice versa. If not, maybe you're angry, then destroy. It doesn't say go on. You do tiny negative, they say. If you live, they're bigger and bigger. We need to some reason. And everybody, please go. I don't know if you can find it, Google that, but think about check. Okay? Okay, now we start today.
Okay.
Today we have puja. Thank you, everybody. Study well.